We're doing this. Just keep talking, Jeff.
Keep going? I can hear me now. Okay.
Good morning, Vern. You look very concerned. Vern, everything okay? Hi, Vern. You had a look on your face like, what's going on? Which everybody is probably wondering, but we're gonna explain. All will be made clear. Somebody got that. Oh no, this is not gonna work. I gotta move this podium. There we go. Hi, Dad. Somebody save me a piece of cherry something. Oh, man. Yeah. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
So I am Kathy Nagley Delgado. I am a member here at Morningstar, and I am here with Jeff Lewis, also a member, but a member for a longer period of time than I, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You may have been expecting to see Amy in this seat, but she is out this morning with a sick kid, and she herself also feeling ill. So together they are at home. And we are moving ahead because we can do that here at Morningstar. And one of the reasons that we successfully move forward on these Sundays is because of our guest here, Reverend Gordon Smith. And so he's joining us. He was here for our 9:15 service, and he will lead our 11:15 service as well. So, in the meantime, we are going to talk with Jeff. And this is such a neat opportunity. And Jeff, I'm so glad that we're here together. I know I'm not Pastor Amy, but I am thrilled to be having this conversation with you. And so I am taking a look at some of the notes that Amy has given me. And I know that she wants me to share the fact that the purpose of parables is to cultivate a greater sense of community through a sharing of our stories. And I love that. I think that's beautiful. And Jeff, you have a pretty interesting story to tell. And so you have been invited to share part of your story in this conversation. So let's go back a little. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Well, I was born in Los Angeles and spent most of my first 8 years there. And when I was a toddler, my parents went to what is now Laughlin, Nevada, which didn't exist in the late 40s. And the reason we went there, my father was a medical doctor, and he was the doctor, the only doctor, I guess, at the company that was building a dam along the Colorado River, and that's what he was there for. And it was in the middle of nowhere, and I don't remember any of it, but I will say this. Shortly thereafter, my parents got divorced, not because they were in the middle of nowhere, but things just didn't work out. So my mother took me back to Los Angeles. And when I was 8 years old, we moved to Los Alamos. And I was there through high school and loved Los Alamos as opposed to Los Angeles, although I really did enjoy we were in Sherman Oaks, and it was a nice place to live as a kid. But Los Alamos was in the mountains. It was nice and green with the pine trees. And I'd never seen snow until I went to Los Alamos, and it was just a different experience, and I really enjoyed growing up there.
So around what years was that for Los Alamos?
1955 to 64.
All right, so kind of an interesting time, post-World War II, smack in the middle of the post-World War II era. I mean, lots of growth, lots of housing probably happening out there.
Well, the government owned everything at the time we moved there. And you had to have a pass to get into the city. And if you didn't have a pass, and people would come from wherever, sometimes Albuquerque, sometimes further away, they'd say, well, we want to see the city. No, you couldn't go in. I think it was 1957 they changed that. And I was looking forward to when I was 14 and I could get my own little pass, but I didn't make it. They changed it before I was 14, so it was totally different.
So interesting. I did not know that about Los Alamos.
Yeah, it was all government. Everything was government. All the housing, everything was government owned, and then the housing started going private a little bit. But yeah.
Wow. A closed city. So keep going. We want to know what happens next.
Okay, I went to UNM. That must be Pat. I don't know.
Go Lobos.
Anyway, and I got a degree in geography in the College of Education. I did my student teaching at Albuquerque High School, which is the original. Those of you familiar with Albuquerque, it was downtown Broadway and Central. It was a downtown school. I did high school, and I enjoyed it up to a point. There were some days I loved it, some days I hated it. And I decided, well, I'm going to go on to graduate school, so I went to the University of Arizona and got a master's degree in geography. And while I was at the University of Arizona, I took a seminar for graduate students, and we were reading writings of geographers. And one of the geographers, named Bob Lucas, worked for Forest Service in the research department in Minnesota, and he had written or had interviewed a number of people in what is called the Boundary Waters Canoe Area, which is northern Minnesota near the Canadian border. It's a large wilderness area. And I found it very interesting. So what I decided I was going to do, and I was still in Arizona, was I was going to do something similar at the Superstition Wilderness area, which is near Phoenix. For those of you near Phoenix, and I haven't been in that area in a long time, at least that part of, it's right near Apache Junction, and it's probably most of that area is filled in. But I interviewed people there. I enjoyed that considerably when I wrote my thesis and did that. And while I was doing that, one of my professors said, Bob Lucas is now in Missoula, Montana with Forest Service Research, and he's looking for somebody to work in the summer with him. And I applied for the job, and I didn't get it, but, and I've never met Bob Lucas, by the way, but he was very impressed with my resume, and the person in Minnesota, another geographer that took over what he was doing there in the Boundary Waters Canoe area, hired me to work, and I worked there a couple of summers, interviewed people in the Boundary Waters Canoe area about their experiences, their trip, how they were doing. They had to fill out a diary. It was very interesting. I loved doing that, and my boss did want to hire me full-time. Unfortunately, this was 1971. President Nixon, had a hiring freeze on hiring permanent employees. So, and I was there through November. And we were headquartered in St. Paul on the University of Minnesota St. Paul campus. And I thought this would be a good job, but then I started thinking, gee, I miss New Mexico, and I really don't know that I can take the Minnesota winters.
We have
Los
a
Alamos
few
was nice.
people here who
Well,
have
you know,
escaped Minnesota
I'll
winters.
tell you what, Los Alamos was nice because, it would snow a lot, but it would melt too, and the sun would come out. That's not the way it is in Minnesota. So I came back to New Mexico, and at that point, I applied for a job with the state of New Mexico. After a while, I finally got an offer to be a caseworker in Tucumcari.
Oh, the great metropolis of Tucumcari.
And
Oh,
I was working with people on welfare, and they're getting their welfare money. That was different, too, than anything I had run across in Los Alamos, although I had worked, as I said, at Albuquerque High. We had a lot of low-income people there, and so I was a little bit. And then I became a social worker, too, which was a different thing, where you're working not with giving out welfare money, but just working in their situation. So I was there for a year and a half, and I will say this, as a social worker, I was threatened a few times and assaulted once. And people, when you're doing especially child neglect, child abuse, they don't take too kindly to that. But I was I was talking to a lot of people. And that was a little bit scary. People would all of a sudden they get their guns to start cleaning their guns when I would talk and things like that. And one man just started throwing me across the room. He was a small guy, but he was very wiry, and he started tossing me around the room. But, it was a difficult job. And I'll say this, when I was in Tucson at the University of Arizona, I did work at 7-Eleven, another dangerous job when you're working in the night, too. So, I'm not saying I'm used to it, but then I went to Portales. I will say this about Tucumcari. I wasn't involved in anything at Portales. I started dating again. I hadn't done that since Minnesota. I was just sort of isolated in Tucumcari, but Portales was more to my liking. There was a university, et cetera, et cetera. I did that for a year. Then I got a job with Natural Resources Department in Las Cruces in 1975, and I figured I'd be here for a short while, and here I am.
75. Oh, that was just 30 years ago, right? No. So there you are. You land in Las Cruces. It's 1975. And when did you get to Morning Star?
Okay.
And how?
Well, it goes back to actually, I'll say this. I grew up in a Presbyterian church and in Los Alamos. And the way that happened was when we moved to Los Alamos, it was just my mother and me, that was it. My third grade teacher and his wife lived next door to us in an apartment when when we moved to Los Alamos, and I was in sort of the last third year of third grade. Anyway, he said, he told me, and his wife told me, why don't you go to our church? And I said, and my mother said, yeah, go to the Sunday school. And so I did, and I went to that church, which was called United Church. At one time, it was the only Protestant church in Los Alamos, but there were another bunch of other ones since then. And I was fairly active there for quite a while. And when I got to college, I didn't get involved in any religious activities, even though my best friend from 6th grade on also went to UNM, and he felt a calling to the ministry, which he eventually became a chaplain, but he never did it, and he was a Southern Baptist, so we didn't speak about religion very often. But anyway, so when I got to Portales, and I started dating, I started going to church, I went to the Presbyterian church, but I was looking for single ministry, and they didn't have any. The Methodist church, which is quite large there, didn't either. So I called up the campus ministry for Eastern New Mexico University, talked to the pastor. I said, is it okay if I come? I'm done with college, but I was still in my 20s. He said, oh yeah, you're welcome. So I got involved in that, and I really enjoyed it. And I met a lot of interesting people in the, it was only about 6 months, I guess, I was involved at Wesley there. But when I came to Las Cruces, the same thing. I was looking for a singles ministry in a Methodist church, Presbyterian church, whatever, and there really wasn't. So what I did was I went over to Wesley Foundation and got involved over there, and I was really active there for a couple of years. Met a lot of neat people, and there were one or two that were actually my age. Somebody asked me one time when I was turning 30, are you really going to be 30? These were students, you know, and I'm like, yeah. Oh, she looked at me then. You're really old. So
Right.
anyway,
At that
a
point,
lot
they
of the
thought
kids,
that was,
a lot
yeah.
of the kids there went to University Church, and then I started going to University Church. The first Sunday I was there, they were starting a young adult group, and I got involved in that, and that was super. And some of them were married, newly married, some weren't, a lot of singles, and I met this woman named Kathy, and we started dating, and it really was going very well. This is a long story, but I'm going to get to Morning Star in a minute. I thought it was really going very well. We were walking at Young Park one day, and she said, well, Jeff, I can't date you anymore. And I said, why is that? She said, you're really not a Christian. I said, what? And she said, well, you're really not. You know, I don't know why she was judging me, but she was. And so that really broke me up, and I remember going, you know, I didn't know what to do. So I went home, and I don't know if it was that day or a few days later, I had a dream. And I don't really believe much in dreams doing anything, but this dream, I was at my house, which at the time that I was renting was located off North Alameda, right near, what is it? I can't even think of the name of the church. Holy Cross Church and School. And there was a big...
Roman Catholic.
Yes, and it was a big area. And I dreamed that I was standing on my front porch, and I was looking out over this field, and it was dark, and I saw the stars. All of a sudden, I looked up in the sky, and the stars were pointed out, and it said three things: God is near. And I thought, wow. And I woke up, and I will say this, and I know this is going to sound hokey, but I was crying tears of joy. I was so moved and excited. And I remember I told Kathy, well, this is what happened to me. So we started dating again. And we went to, what was it? She was a graduate student and an occupational therapist with the public school. She was doing both things. In the summer, she went home to Minnesota, and she invited me to meet her parents and her sister. So I went up there, took 2 weeks off, and we went up there, and we were, you know, doing things and having a good time, staying with her parents. And then the plan was we were going to go up. Her parents had some land near the Boundary Waters Canoe area, so I was familiar with that area. Her parents were going to go up, set up a tent, and their sister and I, and we were going to go, you know, camp out for a while. And then again, she said, you know, Jeff, this isn't working out. And
Wait, while you're up there?
I was up there. Yes, I was already up there. And I thought, okay, now what? And I said, okay, this was the first night, the first afternoon. And I said, well, I'm going to go back to Las Cruces then. Just, you know, I'm done with this. I'm going back to Las Cruces. Totally devastated again, second time. And I went back, and I had some of my belongings in her parents' house. Her parents were very nice, and they said, well, you know, this is where the key is to the house. You're welcome to stay there. You're welcome to do whatever. Well, I didn't want to stay there. I just wanted to pick my stuff and go. But while I was in the house, and I know this is going to sound sort of crazy, but I thought, okay, I'm going to pray. I'm going to kneel down by Kathy's bed. I'm going to pray. Whatever, Lord, you want me to do, I will do. And I got a message, 2-word message, and it was like spoken words, but they were written. It went through me. It was not like spoken words, but it was. Get baptized. I'd never been baptized. So I kept heading back to Las Cruces. I was, I drove the whole way, so I'm just driving back to Des Moines. Again, I felt this wonderful feeling that I knew I wasn't alone. And I went back to University Church, and I told the director of Christian education, I said, I want to be baptized right away and join the church, because I never joined a church either. And she said, you're going to have to wait a couple of weeks. And I said, why? Because the pastor's on vacation. So I waited a couple of weeks, and I did get baptized. And this is a long story, I know it is, but
That's why we're here, Jeff,
Okay.
is to hear your story.
I then went back. They put me on the administrative council, which met every 2 or 3 months. It was a large group of people. I thought,
Let's take a moment to
No, I
appreciate
said-
the irony there, okay? I want to be baptized and join the church. Great, boom, you're on the admin council.
take long. It was a large. Anyway, well, what happened after that was I went back to Nadine. I said, Nadine, I want to do more for the church than just be on the administrative council. And she said, well, I've got 2 openings. These are all volunteer things. I've got 2 openings. One of them is children's coordinator, and the other one's adult coordinator with the education program. And I said, well, I guarantee I don't want to be children's coordinator. And I'll think about being adult coordinator. I'll pray about it. 2 days later, I came back to Nadine. I said, I want to be children's coordinator.
Wow, oh, okay, well,
So-
surprise twist there.
Yeah, it was totally different. Although, I had this background in education, but
Right.
Okay. So I was in charge of recruiting teachers and, the whole thing and the curriculum, et cetera, And I still remember calling people, and I heard so many reasons why they couldn't, teach or substitute. Finally, I got somebody, and I'm just going to say her last name is Christmas. And I said, she is a superwoman. Anyway, I said, would you be willing? She said, yes, I'd love to. And from that point on, I was able to get a whole bunch of teachers and substitutes.
Oh,
And I was able I was able to get things going.
you know what I'm thinking, Jeff, right? You know what I'm thinking.
No,
Do you all know what I'm thinking?
I
You
don't
do,
wanna-
don't you?
No.
Angie.
No.
Oh, Angie, we need you to meet
That's
Jeff.
over. It's done. But anyway, I did do that for a few years. And I loved every minute of
That's
it.
really cool, Jeff. Again, that's something I would never have guessed. I
No,
didn't
I
know
wouldn't have
about
guessed
you.
it either, because
And
I said I didn't want to
because you
do it.
right, I think that's wonderful.
And-
And
and-
it's a great example for people out there about the fact that men do not need to shy away from children's ministry, right? It is so valuable. Thank you.
I think the other thing is, when I say no, I don't always mean it.
Okay.
But anyway, I did get a couple of awards, and I was I really was able to do a bunch of stuff that I never thought I could do. Never really wanted to do it, but it was just going great. And then I was a singles coordinator as well, and at the church we got a singles program going. I was asked at one time to, and I said no to this at first, before I said yes, be chairman of the board of directors at Wesley Foundation. So I did that for off and on for 20 years. And with that in mind, everything was going great at University Church. And like a lot of churches, we had a change in pastors. And I did okay the first few changes we had, but the last one, even though a fine person, and I don't know, I just felt something was missing, and I wasn't as active, and I don't know, things were not going as well. And another lady that I was dating, I wasn't dating all these at the same time, but And the other one that I had, talked about earlier had moved to Washington and Seattle. Don't ask me why, but she did. Anyway, so this other lady I was dating said, we ought to try the new, Morning Star Church. And to back it up, at our singles class at University Church, one day Steve James came by and said, look, I'm starting a new church in town. I'm not recruiting people to join the church. I'm recruiting people to help with the church. And I thought, well, that was interesting. And this other gal said, yeah, let's try the church, see what it's like. We tried it, and I loved it. And that was right at the beginning. I think we hadn't been chartered yet. We were, I think it was about 3 months maybe before it started. We were
So
meeting.
that probably would have been 81, right? Right around 1981?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was later than that. It was
Later than that?
late 80s.
Late 80s.
I think it was like 87, 88, something like
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Okay, 87, 88? All right.
yeah. And
Y'all know your church history. I'm proud.
we were at Budiger's Nursery, and we have still a few people in Morning Star Church that were way back then. But anyway, I loved it, and of course, Steve James, fantastic person to found the church. He did it for 5 years, and he found out about what I had done at University Church and said, okay, well, I want you to be on staff parish relations committee. But the first thing I was asked to do was usher. So I did that for 26 years or something. I don't know. And I enjoyed that. I was the head usher, whatever that meant. Didn't pay much, but that's what I was doing. And finally, I don't know. I was becoming very active, but and Steve James asked me one day. He said, when we were still at Budiger's, he said, we were already planning this building. We were already starting the building. And he said, I want you to be chairman of the administrative council. I don't know, gee. But I did do that for a year and a half, and that was about all I could do. And that was when we were moving. I remember we had some of our meetings over here. We had some meetings at Budiger's and, things. So.
You have seen a lot of changes.
Oh, yeah.
My gosh, yes.
Yeah, we were, and I think if we redesigned the physical part of this church, we'd do it a little bit differently. But we were still a very small church when we moved over here. This was a test of faith, and when we got over here and the conference was putting in money to helping us, because we didn't have that many or couldn't afford it. But and one of the things I will share with people is once we got this place built, there were no houses around here, I think, and they had just finished paving Roadrunner from I don't know where it was, somewhere in High Range to Highway 70. Before that, it was a dirt road, and there were no houses in this immediate area. So, when we were building the church, we obviously wanted electricity, and El Paso, in their kindness, said it'll cost you $30,000 to hook up because there's nobody here besides us. And we also were on a septic system for years too because we weren't connected to the sewer. So, but we felt this would be a high growth area, and of course it was.
And of course it was, yes, it is.
We didn't want to be near University or St. Paul's, and so this is where we ended up. And
This was the boonies at the time.
yes, it was, and our parking lot was so small. I mean, it was, it was this lower part, but it was like half this lower part. It was paved. We had to get it paved by the city. I think the city required that, but so we did that, and yeah, it was different. And I will say this: I was involved in, I don't know how many times I'm on staff parish relations committee, SPRC. I chaired that a few times. Nobody else wanted to chair it, and that was when John Moore was here, and so. It was very interesting. I was on a lot of committees, but that was then and this is now. So,
Well, this is fascinating because we don't have like the official church historian in our congregation, but unofficially, this is the guy, right? I
Well,
mean,
you know,
this is our living, breathing church history right here. So that's very special.
Well, we have had church historians. I don't know whatever happened to what they did. I have no idea. I mean, you know, they've come and gone or whatever. And but yeah, it was. This was, and I've obviously seen a lot of changes. The congregation is much different than it was.
Oh, it's
back
changed
then.
so much.
Basically, when we started was quite a bit, and we still have this. We had a bunch of young adults. Primarily, that's who we had. Mm-hmm. Now we've got older people at basically the later service, and the younger ones in the middle service, or the whatever it is.
Because at the time we were brand new,
Yes.
Morning Star was brand
And
new.
Steve James
Now
was-
we're so established.
And Steve James was young too. I don't know that meant anything.
That's
either,
right.
But I think this was his first pastorate, and he was asked, you know, or I don't know, maybe he volunteered to found a church, and he did a
Appointed.
very good job of getting it going. And so, yeah.
That is neat. That is neat. Well, not only are we happy to have you as part of our church history, but we are also happy to have you as part of our church's future. And so to wrap this up, so that we can get set up for the next service, tell me something that you would dream for Morning Star's future.
Well, you know, I think COVID really messed us up as far as attendance goes and this type of thing, and we still haven't quite recovered from that, I guess. But one of the things we have tried to do, and we've been successful, is a singles group for younger people. Now we've got a senior singles group that meets
Two
once a
senior
month,
singles.
because now we're seniors, you know, or at least I'm a senior, and some of the people that were in that original group are, you know, seniors. But I think we need to I think the Methodist Church as a whole needs to reach out to single people past college age. We've got the campus ministry, which I'm very proud of, and but we need to go transition in. Some people get married and they have families, and that's fine. It's the single people that, when I was singles coordinator at University Church, one of the things I found out nationally was how well the Southern Baptists did that type of thing. And the Methodist Church as a whole doesn't. We have a big gap.
Right. Well, that's a great dream, to encourage young adults to be a part of our community, to welcome them, and to think about how we can have programs for young adults, singles, and young adults in general.
Well, you know, they are our future. Let's
They are.
face it.
Just like we talk about our kids as the future of the church.
Yes.
You know, and that is so important. That is so important. So yes, one of the things that is wonderful about our 9:15 service is if you get the chance to come to the 9:15 service when you're a regular at 11:15, I encourage that, because you do begin to see that we are having some new growth in that area, and folks who are beginning to attend who fit that category, young adults, both single and in couples. And so that's just a really neat thing to be a part of, and certainly something that we're beginning to see in our 9:15 service. It helps to have some younger pastors, right? You were talking about how Steve
I
is...
have nothing against older pastors. Thank you.
But no, you know, you talked about how Steve was a young pastor, and so we're excited about that as well. Jeff, it was very wonderful to sit down and talk with you. I have such respect for your participation in so many different ways in the life of Morning Star, and really being a key player in the fact that Morning Star still lives and breathes today.
Can I mention real quickly?
Yes,
one
sir.
thing? When we started, we had I mentioned the young adult class at University Church. It was like a family. We also had a Bible study group that met once a week at people's houses at Morning Star years ago. And out of that group, we probably had about 15 people come and go in about 5 years. 7 of them went into the ministry, or at least at one time did. Not all of them were Methodist, but we did that. But I think the growth group that I'm part of now is something that really is important to me.
Yes,
Got a bunch of people here from that group. I think we were the first one, Carolyn Martinez's group.
that's right.
And we're still going strong, and I don't have any family left, really. It was a small family to begin with, as far as, relatives, but this is my family. And Morning Star also is, too, to a larger extent. But we become very close. We're doing great as far as becoming, I think, stronger Christians at our growth group. And I certainly
Yes.
encourage people to participate in a growth group if you possibly can.
Thank you, Jeff, for saying that. Jeff's group is one of the original groups, one of the very few original groups still meeting. And if you want to know more about that, you can certainly talk with him about it. If you would like to know more about growth groups in general, I can connect you to the folks who are working with them actively. They are a wonderful opportunity. This is time for me to go. I'm supposed to be off the stage at this point. So I am going to get off the stage. Jeff and I are going to get off the stage. Thank you so much for being here this morning with us. Jeff, thank you. And stick around. 11:15 is right around the corner.
I didn't mean to take up all.
No, you did great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that right? Is he still has he returned yet?